Introduction to setups and other flow interruptions. A smooth, constant flow of products or services is a dream of operations manager. However, interruptions are inevitable due to the following three reasons. The first reason, which is the topic of this part of the course, is setups. The second is variability in processing that causes waiting. That will be one topic. We'll be trying to estimate the waiting time created due to variability, and throughput loss or lost demand in another topic. And the last reason for interruption will be quality problems, which will be in topic 10. Why do we have setups? Well, because we sometimes want to process things in batches. Batch operations or batch processing typically uses some general purpose technology to produce or process a large variety of products in production runs or batches, right? The batches allow for more variety than continuous process or an assembly line, but at the same time, they have a lower cost than job shop processes, right? So there are some economies of scale. Recall from topic 2, the product process matrix. We said, right, that different types of processes are used depending on the volume and variety that is required. So batch processes are somewhere here in between the job shops which give us very low volume but practically unique, so very high variety products. Continuous processes or assembly lines allow for very high volume or high volume at much lower variety, right? Sometimes practically standardized products. And so batch processes are somewhere in between. They allow for some medium volume and reasonably high variety, but of course, units produced in the same batch will usually be identical. So a batch is a collection of flow units that are processed together, and often each batch requires an operation called setup or changeover, which this operation sometimes requires time, sometimes it has a certain cost, and sometimes both. So for each product type, the setup time or cost may be different, and in fact, sometimes it may also depend on which product was produced or processed before the new product, right? To emphasize this, we sometimes call it changeover, right? Changeover is defined from which product we're changing to which product we're changing. The cost and the time of the changeover may depend on these two products. Batching is quite common in low volume manufacturing, including like high-tech products, because often, companies there are subcontractors, for example, that produce components or even finished products in, highly technologically involved industries, and they will produce, a batch for one company and then shift to another batch for another company. It is also common in transportation, right? It makes sense to transport units in larger trucks, multiple units of several products, and also in education training, where it makes sense to get a group of students and train rather than give individual training to a single person, right? Like tutoring, right? Often education is done in batches. And again, on all those cases, economies of scale are the reason. Batching creates an inherent mismatch between demand and supply, because when we process a batch, right, for example, in transportation, before you have a shipment, you have to first build up enough inventory that will be ready to be loaded in the truck, right? So you have to create a buildup of inventory before the shipment occurs. Then the units are put on the truck, and then when they are received at a certain the customer, let's say in a supermarket, they have to last for the demand until the next shipment arrives. So actually, batching creates what we call a cycle inventory. And this inventory, of course, causes an increase in inventory. It is necessary, but at the same time, we recognize that any inventory that we could avoid, possibly we should try to avoid